For so many of us who are founders or leaders, there's this very specific kind of exhaustion, and it has absolutely nothing to do with how many hours you work. It's the exhaustion that comes from just upholding a persona, from performing a version of yourself that maybe, just maybe, doesn't feel real anymore. Now, that feeling, it's not a personal failing, it's actually a strategic problem, one we're calling the performance tax. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that is, and more importantly, how to stop paying it. So let's just start by flipping the script on a word that gets thrown around all the time: authenticity. What if it's not some grand quest to find a new you? What if instead it's just about removing what was never really yours to begin with? This one question right here is the key to everything we're about to get into. This quote really just sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it? It gives us this simple, really powerful equation. The exact moment you stop performing, that's the moment your real identity finally has room to show up. And that's the goal here, to end the performance. Okay, so our first big idea is this concept of a cessation of hiding. It sounds a little formal, but think of it this way. It's not about transforming into someone new. It's about unveiling who's already there. It's the process of finally letting go of all those habits and masks you've picked up over the years, to please others, to seem more polished, or maybe just to keep the peace. Yeah, this really reframes the whole journey. It's not some destination you have to struggle and claw your way to. It's just a process of removal. And this really clicks for a lot of leaders because they feel that quiet, kind of uncomfortable gap between their internal truth and what they're actually saying or doing. It's a slow drift, and the very first step back is simply to notice it's even happening. And that gap, that drift, leads us right to the core concept for today: the performance tax. This is the hidden cost you're paying every single day for the space between who you really are and who you're performing as. This is the number one killer of executive stamina, and it quietly, slowly erodes your brand's resonance. All right, here's the official definition. I want you to really let this sink in. It's that specific exhaustion. It's the mental and emotional energy you burn just to uphold a persona that isn't really you anymore. This finally puts a name to that feeling of burnout that you just can't quite explain by looking at your calendar. So what does paying this tax actually look like in real life? Well, it looks a lot like this. It's that constant overthinking before you speak in a meeting. It's that little hesitation because you're busy calculating the right thing to say instead of the true thing. It's saying yes to something when your gut is literally screaming no, or just nodding along when something feels really off. Every single one of these is a tiny little transaction, a little payment, and believe me, they add up. To make this super concrete, let's dig into a case study. Now, I don't want you to see this as a success story. Think of it more like a clinical example of this phenomenon we're calling identity drift. It shows exactly how all those tiny little performances, those microtransactions, lead to a massive disconnect over time. So our subject is this mentor, a leader who over many, many years carefully built a professional identity. And she was exactly what everyone seemed to want her to be, right? Agreeable, totally reliable, never showing a single crack in that polished exterior. This is the classic good leader persona so many of us try to put on. But here's the cost. On the inside, she was experiencing that identity drift we talked about. Every single time she performed, she moved just a millimeter away from her true self. And over years, well, those millimeters turned into miles. This is the brutal internal consequence of paying the performance tax day in and day out. So, the turning point. It wasn't some huge dramatic event. It was just an ordinary conversation on an ordinary afternoon. She started giving one of her pre-programmed polished answers. And for the first time, she really heard herself. She felt that disconnect in real time. It was a tiny moment, but it was the alarm bell that finally broke through all the noise. And what did she do? She didn't make a big scene. She didn't flip a table. She simply paused, stopped mid-sentence, took a breath, and then said what was actually true for her. You see, the antidote to years of drifting wasn't a revolution. It was one single, quiet, honest moment. Now, that action she took, that wasn't just a random moment of bravery. It's a repeatable strategy. We can actually distill what she did into something we'll call the honest moment protocol. And this, right here, is the primary architectural brick you can use to build a more sovereign business and, frankly, a more authentic professional life. And the protocol itself is just beautifully simple. It's got 3 steps, that's it. First, you have to notice it. that feeling in your gut when what you're saying or doing just feels off. Second, you pause. You interrupt the autopilot. You just stop for a second. And third, you express what is actually true. Even if it's as simple as saying, you know what, let me rethink that for a moment. When you start practicing this protocol, it leads to a fundamental strategic pivot in how you operate as a leader. It's a shift from a life spent chasing external approval to one that's focused on maintaining your internal alignment. And that is the difference between having a reactive persona and a truly sovereign identity. This slide really lays out the two different operating systems we're talking about. Over on the left, you've got managing approval. Here, your focus is always external, on what others expect. Your goal is to be acceptable, and the strategy is to perform. And the result? Hiding and exhaustion. But on the right, you have expressing alignment. Here, your focus is internal, on your own truth. The goal isn't to be polished, it's just to be honest. The strategy is aligning your actions with that truth. And the result? Expression and strength. So here's the key takeaway, the bottom line. Your real identity isn't something you just find one day. It's a muscle that you have to build, and it gets stronger every single time you choose that expressing alignment column over the managing approval column. Every honest moment is like a rep at the gym for your soul. So we'll end with a question for you. I want you to really think about it. Think about your day, your week ahead, your next meeting, your next email. Where will you practice the protocol? Where will your first honest moment be? Now look, choosing alignment over approval is deep, deep work. And if you're looking for a structured way to build that muscle, the 365 Freedom resource mentioned in the source material is designed specifically for that journey.